Akif Kirecci. He's a professor of international relations, also a member of the Turkish Presidency's Council for Security and Foreign Policy. Mr. Kirecci, a lot of people still outside Turkey now think that this coup was a made-up event or somehow staged by the government. What's the main problem, do you think, in getting this message across to the outside world?
Well, it was difficult to explain what really happened on that night to the people abroad. A few months after the coup attempt, I was in Paris to attend a meeting at UNESCO. After our official meetings, we gathered with our friends and they asked me about this very question. And then I started to explain what really happened on that night. People experienced a terrible sort of nightmare, literally and figuratively. And the more I explained, they said, well, we didn't know that. Wow, we didn't know that. Well, because in many TV outlets, many media outlets didn't really show the true aspect of what happened on that night. It was surreal. And I told them that what you guys were thinking. We were shooting a new Dan Brown movie altogether as a nation on that night. Well, they prepared for this night, for this takeover of the power in Turkey to topple the government for decades, if I may state it, about 4 decades. They worked on this very secretively. It was a very connected network. Nobody knew who was the member of the network. On that night, and finally, when they realized that many high-level officers from the army were about to be sort of fired because of their connection to this secret network, they decided to push to pull the government, to pull the plug, so to speak, when they felt that it was the most strong moment to attack on the government. Unfortunately, Turkish army, members of this group within the army, with their known and unknown comrades, targeted Turkish people, killed them, attacked on them, and it was a huge disruption on the part of the Turkish government, on the continuity of the democracy. Their objective was obviously to instill destabilization in the country and perhaps further to the region. But Turkish people defended their rights of freedom, their rights of democracy. And I think I'm proud to say that Turkish people proved themselves that they deserve democracy like any other country in the modern European sense. It is nothing less than French Revolution, celebrated anniversary yesterday, 14th of July. Mm-hmm. I think this made Turkey come back altogether with every folks of, a lot of people, I have to say that, participated to demonstrations against this coup attempt from all folks of life, all folks of political beliefs, I must state.
One figure that people often hear about is the tens of thousands of people either arrested in Turkey or have lost their jobs, suspended from their jobs. How can you make people outside Turkey understand the nature of this organization, why these kinds of numbers have to be involved in these investigations?
And it is still continuing, and we are hearing from the news that every once in a while they are arrested, groups of people. Like I mentioned, they have been working on this for the last 4 decades in a very secretive manner. They convince people that they don't want anything for themselves. It was seemingly a very altruistic movement. And the very origin of this movement emerged from the problem in our democracy. The system at the time, in 1970s, 1980s, sort of selected certain people who can enter the government offices, who cannot. If you are wearing a headscarf, you wouldn't be a university student in Turkey. If you are a practicing Muslim, you wouldn't be accepted to the army ranks, and so on and so forth. So this organization convinced people, regular, standard people, that it is okay to behave as if they are very modern, very Western looking. In return, that they get a government job, either in the army or in the police department or in other high-level offices. So I guess, at some point played out for the regular people in terms of their sons were, behaving fine, behaving good. But nobody realized, this is a very interesting aspect of this moment, is that even the members of this organization didn't know more than 2 or 3 people. I mean, the whole network, after the coup attempt, we are trying to identify what are the dimensions, what are the main scope of this network. Nobody knew, even the members of this network, who actually was guiding them. They all use nicknames. So right now, after the coup, government, as an administrative decision, decided to cleanse the government offices from the members of this organization. Because of their secretive nature, still they are operating from certain phones, from certain connections. When they identify, they use secretive connection networks in social media, so on and so forth. Whenever the government officials identify that they are operating on this level, they go ahead and try to arrest them and try to cleanse again. The continuation of the cleansing of the government offices is still is an issue in Turkey. And I think that's one of the most difficult aspects of continuing in a very democratic system, convincing people that they are working not for the government that are paid for, employed by, but for another group. They are taking their orders from outside. So that's not only Turkey, not only a functioning democracy, but any country, any state, any system, any business cannot accept this.
Mm-hmm. For several years now, Turkey has been trying to obtain the extradition of Fetullah Gulen from the United States, but there's been no resolution one way or the other, no decision. Why do you think this is taking so long to sort out?
Well, based on the official explanations, U.S. government is making constantly, that Turkish government is supposed to make the connection based on hardcore evidence that Gulen actually ordered this. So if you ask anybody on the street, 1, 2, 3, 1,000 people, who orchestrated the coup, the answer is obvious. And Turkish Minister of Justice provided tens of thousands of pages of documentations to American counterparts, to their American counterparts. I'm sure they are examining them, working on them for the last 4 years. Either they are not convinced or they don't want to be convinced. So we have 2 scenarios in this case. In any event, they are invested, perhaps the American government invested maybe to this network because they operate in many other countries, in Central Asia, in Africa. So it is our hope as a nation, not only as a government, but as a nation, our number 1 ally within NATO would actually proceed what is due in terms of legal steps.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kirecci. That's all we've got time for today.
Thank you.